We all know about mice like the G Pro X Superlight and Razer Viper, both of which will be perfectly fine for the majority of people in terms of shape and size. Though Ergo mice have had a spot in my heart, being much more comfortable for longer gaming sessions, but these mice right here, the Pulsar Xlite V2 and Xlite V2 Mini, in my opinion, come out on top. Pairing the medium version with their grip tape and superglide glass skates makes for an interesting combo that I love and hate. On my scale, it comes in at 63 grams, with the Mini just a little bit higher at 58 grams. Aside from the weight difference and smaller size, the two mice are identical. Both are 80 bucks, so it really comes down to personal preference on which to go for. The Mini is honestly a lot smaller than I expected it to be. It's a considerable difference comparing it to the medium. This is unintentionally my first small mouse. I just wanted to get a black one to compare the stock feet to the medium, as well as just the color. But yeah, I didn't realize I ordered the Mini one. I've only had about a day to play with it, so there's still a steep learning curve I have to get over, just because I'm so used to using bigger mice all the time. That said, it's a really good mouse for fingertipping, and with its lighter weight, once I'm used to it, it's going to be killer for Valorant, where having quick and accurate flicks are super important. At this point, I've only used the glass skates on the medium for a few days. I'll have a more in-depth review probably when the new versions come out, so that I can compare the experience. Installing them is straightforward. First, you'll need to take off the stock PTFE feet, which I had a little trouble with, but just make sure to clean off any residue before putting the new ones on. My first impression was that they are really smooth, and especially with how light the mouse is already, it's going to make quick flicks a whole lot easier. These do have a learning curve and break-in period, but it's not honestly as extreme as I expected. The Zowie mousepad I use has a really good balance between speed and control, so that keeps the glide in check, but I am still aiming a little worse than beforehand. In tracking-based games like Apex, I've noticed a benefit with medium-range targets, as it's a lot easier for me to follow and quickly readjust my aim. Close quarter combat though in this adjustment period is super annoying because I'll still overshoot and struggle to keep my crosshair on one target. With these glass feet, every small micro adjustment you make will be picked up by the sensor that is otherwise sort of cancelled out with PTFE. Even with the mouse just sitting completely still on the desk, the cursor starts to float away, which makes simple desktop use a bit of a pain, and the most annoying thing I've found is you have to turn off the mouse to watch a full screen video. While gaming, this is going to make it a lot harder to be accurate at long range. If you're mostly playing games like CS or Valorant, I'd probably just advise completely against these because it is tough to hit very small targets. In Kovacs, I could still be accurate, but I have to slow down much faster than usual and a lot of the time correct for overshooting. I tried a harder variation where it's the same small targets, but they disappear after a second, and that was just straight up impossible. I cannot be accurate enough with these. If you don't want to use the super glides, the stock PTFE feet are still quite good. I never had any issues with them or felt the need to swap them out. The design of the two mice is really nothing special. It's essentially the same we've seen from the Model D, but both are considerably smaller, which I personally do like for a fingertip grip. There are the perforated cutouts all along the back and sides of the mouse, which I'm pretty neutral on. I know a lot of people make a big deal when mice have holes in them, and it doesn't look amazing, of course, but it's not something I ever really notice. Some of the underside is left open, which I really like the look of personally. Getting to see the PCB is a super cool attention to detail that also does shed off some of the weight. In hand, the mouse is quite comfortable and feels good, but there isn't a texture coating, it's just smooth plastic. I much prefer what Razer does. They have a subtle grippy coating that just makes holding the mouse much more comfortable. I tried using the super grip tape on the sides to get a similar effect, but it didn't really work out how I wanted it to. The grip is really strong, which I just found to be uncomfortable, but if that's what you're looking for, they work great. I've never really been the type of person to play with grip tape at all, so these just aren't for me. The mouse buttons on here are definitely not my favorite. They're not separated from the rest of the mouse body, which I find kind of weird. This makes clicks higher up feel a lot heavier and less consistent, so this is something to watch out for if you're fingertip gripping. The switches underneath are the KL GM 8.0s, which are fine, but I've had some squeaking issues with these on the X2, so I'm a little worried about whether these will last. I wish these had a more crisp and tactile feel because I've honestly been spoiled after trying Razer's optical switches. Every mouse I've used since the Viper V2 Pro just hasn't matched up to the feel those have. I like and appreciate the size of the side buttons, as a lot of mice just have these super thin and hard to hit buttons. My only real complaint with them is they feel a little inconsistent and like they're wallowing on top of the switch. The scroll wheel is not bad, the rubber texture feels nice, and the scroll itself is smooth with pronounced steps. It does rattle a little, but it's not loud enough to notice unless you have it right up to your ear. The sensor tech is pretty standard. It's using the Pulsar Xlite 3370, which has an 1000Hz polling rate, 50G acceleration, and a 20K max DPI. The tracking feels very responsive. I haven't had any issues in that front, and the superglides honestly just improve the overall smoothness. In the Pulsar software, you can configure up to 4 DPI stages, and the light corresponding to each one will shine underneath the mouse. There isn't a DPI button anywhere on the mouse though, so you're gonna have to go into here every time you want to change it around. The debounce time out of the box is 4 milliseconds, but you can turn it down to 0. Just note this will increase the likelihood of the mouse double clicking. In game, I've not really noticed this being an issue, but using a double click test, if you click too hard, it will often double click. I honestly haven't had a ton of time with the mouse. It's only been around 2 weeks, but in that time, I've played a lot more than I usually do. Pulsar says that you can get a max battery life of 70 hours, and up until I was making this video, I had it sitting around 60%, but just through filming, having it sitting around on the desk, it's already dropped down to 25%. As I mentioned, I've played with this mouse entirely using a fingertip grip because that's just what I've found to be the most comfortable. Though with the hump at the back and the overall Ergo design, I think you could comfortably play with a claw grip. I also mentioned that the Mini is going to be really good to use with a fingertip grip. Since it is so small and lightweight, it barely feels like you have anything in your hand, which I honestly quite like. Once I get used to the superglide skates and practice some more Kovacs, I think I'll be beaming with this mouse. I've been playing a lot of Apex recently, and both of these mice perform really well for it, but especially with the white one and the superglides, medium range shots are super smooth, but I just keep getting demolished up close. All that said though, the Pulsar Xlite V2 and Xlite V2 Mini are worth checking out. At $80, it's priced the same as the glorious Model D and much cheaper than the $150 Death Adder. I'm honestly going to make the Mini my new daily just because I love its small size, and I think once I'm comfortable with it, I'm going to be playing really well, but I'll still be going back and forth between it, the medium, and just any other mouse I try. I appreciate you guys for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe and follow me over on Instagram and Twitter. I'll see you all next week, but until then, take care.